Hello friends, welcome to this video. So in this video we'll be looking at how to build a Base64 code to image or image to Base64 converter inside web application in JavaScript, in HTML, CSS and Tailwind CSS. So it works in the browser. So it's a complete client-side application. You can see on your screen the live demo. We have two sections. Either you can convert from Base64 code to an actual image, or you can convert the image to Base64 code. So first of all, let me show you uh, the image. If I select a JPG, PNG, any kind of image, click this button, encode this image to Base64. It will give you this code right here, and then you can copy this code, copy to clipboard, go to Base64 code to image, paste this Base64 code and click on convert to image. You will see that converted image. You can simply save this image on your computer like this. So it's a very simple tool which does both the things. Either you can convert Base64 to image or image to Base64 code. So we will be building this application. All the source code that I will use is given in the description of this video. So now let's get started. So you'll give it an ID title, which is Base64 code image converter. You do need to include the Tailwind CSS CDN as well. Simply after the title, paste it. So you need to give it a gray color to the body, DG gray 100 P4. And then we will have this all these Tailwind classes. So Tailwind is not necessary for this tutorial. I'm just styling this app, just it looks good. So if you don't want to use Tailwind, it's perfectly fine. So you're given these classes, and inside this you will have the h1 tag. Text to Excel, font bold, margin bottom 4. So if you refresh now, it will look something like this. And now you'll be having two tabs, two different tabs for doing the first tab will be for Base64 code to image. So here we'll be using justified around just to create these two tabs. So one tab will give it an button right here, ID to the button, image to Base64 button. You give it a class as well. We paste the styles here. Don't want to waste time in Tailwind CSS because this tutorial is not about Tailwind. So we have given all these classes. So for background color, text color, font bold, it is rounded. So the label will be simply image to Base64. It will look something like this. So what we can do, we can copy this button one more time. So this time this button will have an ID, Base64 to image button. This time this will be green button. So now you will see that. So these are two different tabs, two different buttons for switching sections. And now we need to define the sections here. So the first section right here, which will be for image to base64 section. So we'll have an div right here. We'll give it an ID here of image to base64, and by default it will be hidden. We'll giving a tailwind class of hidden. It will not be shown. Inside this we will have an ID image to base64 form, giving a class mb4, and we'll have a label right here. Let me paste the classes here. So it will not be shown because we have given this hidden class. Let me remove it. It will look something like this. And then we will have input type file. Give it an ID right here, image file. We will only be accepting images files, and it should be required. So this is the one div, and after this we will have a button to submit the form. So you will simply say the button right here. It will say convert to base64. So you will give all these tailwind classes to it as well. It will look something like this. So just let me make it as hidden. It is not shown. Now it is not showing. So same thing, we need to do this for the. So after this we do need to have a section where we actually give it an ID here, which is image preview. This will also be hidden. So in this section, this will be the second section. This is image to base64 code. This is will be base64 code to actual image. So this one will be base64 string we need to provide. So then we will have an text area where we'll be asking the user to provide the base64 code. We're given an ID here, which is base64 output. It will only be read only. The user can only read the text, not modify it. And then we will give all these tailwind classes. Let me copy this. The rows will be 5, so just make it 5. It will look something like this, base64 string, and then we will have a text area. And just outside this, just below this text area, we will also be having a copy to clipboard button. We'll give it an ID here of a copy button. copy to clipboard. So it will look something like this. So now we have one section ready. So for that we will write the JavaScript code. So script.js, we will write the JavaScript code in this file. So first of all, we do need to get all the references, image to base64 button, or we can directly bind the listener without storing the variable. So you can simply say image to base64 button, and we need to bind add event listener. So first of all, what we will do, we will simply remove the hidden parameter from that. So for this, we need to store the image to base64 section. So first of all, we do need to remove the hidden parameter from that. So as I click this button, it will be shown to the user whenever you click this button. So after you do this, we also need to bind whenever the form is submitted, image to base64 form, submit. When the form is submitted, this callback function will execute. We need to prevent the auto submission of the form, and then we need to get access to the image file which is selected by the ID that we have given, image file dot files. Get access to the actual image file which is selected, and then here we will be checking the if condition that if the image selected is not defined. In that case, we can simply say that please select an image file, and then we'll be using again the file reader API which is available in every browser. So it has an onload event, and it has this callback function which contains information. One such information is the base64 string. So we can easily get the base64 string using event.target.result. So if you console log this value, you will see it will return the base64 code in the console. So this function, which is read as data URL, this function that we are calling right here, this returns the base64 code of an actual image. And here we need to pass the actual selected image file. So if you check in the console, if I select a image file, click on this button, so you will see all this code that you return, data underscore image. After this, all this is the base64 code of the image. So now we need to display the actual image. we need to display this base64 string. So right here, after we get this base64 string, we will create a custom function which will simply say display base64 string, and we will pass this base64 string as an argument. So now we need to make this function display base64 string, and then base64 output, we need to get reference to the text area. We have given an ID to it of base64 output, and then image preview as well. We given an ID to it of image preview, and the copy to clipboard button, we have also given an ID to that button as well, which is copy button. So the base64 output, the text area value will be equal to the base64 code string value. So we'll be simply be equaling it to, and then we also need to remove the hidden class that we have given to the image preview element. So you'll simply use the class lid.remove. So if you refresh your application now, simply select the image file, click on convert to base64 code, and now you will see your base64 string will be shown in the text area. And if you want to click copy to clipboard, let me assign a event listener to it. Copy button, add event listener, click. So whenever you click this button, you'll use the navigator API, which is available in every browser. Clipboard write text base64 output dot value, and this actually returns a promise, so we can handle this dot then. And we can show an alert message to the user. Your base64 string is copied to clipboard. So if I just refresh the application, so now you will see this alert message. So one section is done, which is image to base64 code. Now we move to the next section, which is if we take this base64 code, we need to get the actual image. So we will now tackle the second section. So we do need to make the HTML code for that. So this was image to base64 section. This one will be base64 to image section. Again, we'll be having a div with an ID this time of base64 to image section. It will also be having a hidden class. It will have a form right here, which will have this ID. So after this, once again, we'll be having the same thing right here. Inside this form, we will have a label. We have the text area where we allow the user to paste the base64 code. Then we have a button which says convert to image. So after this form, we also have a section where we show the image, which is will be hidden by default. We will simply say converted image, and this image tag, given an ID here of output image, we'll give it a class of preview image. So now the HTML, this is all the HTML which is there for this section. Now coming back to the JavaScript code. When we click the image to base64 button, we also need to, first of all, let me get the section. Base64 code to image. We need to add this hidden class. And also we need to get access to the image to get this in base64 code to image button. We need to bind a listener to it, base64 code to image button. So whenever we click this button, so we need to show the base64 section, class list dot remove hidden, and we need to hide, because if you don't hide that, if I click this, it will create an error. We do need to also hide the previous section, which was first of all we do need to this one image to, sorry, base64 to image section. It is showing, but we also need to hide that section of image to base64 section. And then we will also be having the form which we have given. If you see, this will be this time base64 to image form. And here again we'll do the same process that we done earlier. This time we'll be getting the base64 input, which is submitted by the user. We also need to trim the value as well, trim it, remove the white space, and if the input is not proper, in that case we will show to the user alert message that please enter a valid base64 string. Then we need to return from the program, and then we will be calling a custom function which will be display converted image, providing this base64 input. So this function display converted image will take the base64 code as input, and we will be calculating the output based upon this. So image output get element by id, image output, and also the output image where we need to actually show the image. So output image dot source will be equal to the base64 string, very simple, and then image output, we need to remove the hidden attribute from it. So image class list dot remove hidden. That's all. This needs to be, sorry, just call this base64 string. This completes your application. If I now test this, let me first of all convert a image to base64. Copy this clipboard. Now come here, paste. You can see if I click this button, it is already also showing. So what we need to do, we need to add the hidden class first. Just make sure that you do this. Hide this section first and then remove the hidden class from it. Just change the ordering and paste the base64 string. Now you will see converted images there. I think some ordering mistake has happened. All the source code that I have used in this video is given in the description. So don't worry about it. You can go to the description and get all the source code. I think some typo mistake has happened. So I think JavaScript code is correct. I think that's why if you click the image to basic, but the overall functionality is working. If you see converted image, we are getting this image. It was just the ordering issue in the UI. So all the source code is given in the description. And do check out my website freemediatools.com where I have all these tools, base64 code, image to base64. So I add the tools on a daily basis. So do check out this website. You will see that you can try this tool here also. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will be seeing you in the next video.